Today, we're chatting with college student and young leader in our cyber community, Charissa Kim. I have talked with Charissa in the past on cyber chats, but this time you get to hear all of our behind the scenes chatter. How are you doing, Charissa?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. How is college going?
College is going well. Yesterday was our first day of school, back to school from winter break. So we're slowly easing into the semester.
Yes. So it's your second year, right?
No, it's actually my third year.
Is it your third year? Oh my gosh. Time is flying by.
I know.
Do you want to share with our listeners what your path and like what your major is, just so they kind of like know more about you?
Yes, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Charissa. I'm currently a junior at UC Berkeley studying legal studies and computer science. And so I heard a lot of people being like, oh, that's such an odd combination,
yeah.
Computer science. And I'd say that cybersecurity, I did a lot of cybersecurity related things in high school, which made me sort of realize, oh, I want to do comp sci in college. But also, I also do have a passion for law and going into law school. So I decided to pick up legal studies as my double major.
That's awesome. So yeah, let's backtrack to like back in high school. So we also get that background. I know that you've been ranked first and second in back-to-back years at Cyber Patriot competitions. What is your secret? Like, how did you, place so high in such a competitive competition?
Okay, yes. So like, I don't know if this is like typically common, but I was not a tech girl at all in the beginning of high school. Like, if you told me to start up a computer, that's literally what I could do in the beginning of freshman year, like no joke. And so initially what happened is that during the summer, my mom was just like, oh, there's a Cyber Patriot like camp going on in like my high school, right? And like, since this is the beginning of my freshman year, I'm like, wow, like I want to make some friends. I'll just join this camp, even though I had no idea what the word cybersecurity even meant. And then I attended the camp and I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. And that's like the initial starting point of how I got into cybersecurity. I think I was just like amazed how I could like solve and secure so many devices and find different vulnerabilities. Like I was so unaware of these vulnerabilities, and I was just so glad that I got
this
to learn.
Just like in your first year, like just attending the camp?
Yeah, that was just attending the camp.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I was just like, this was a lot of fun, but I don't think I'm actually going to pursue it. And so in my head, I was just like, I want to try out for the girls' basketball team. But I tried out and I got rejected. And like people always say rejection turns out to be redirection. And so I was just like, you know what? I will just try out for the cybersecurity team because like, why not, right? And it was a lot of fun during the summer. And that was just like my plan B. And I tried out for the tryouts. I had the tryouts and essentially I placed first as a freshman and as the only girl freshman. So I think they were like all really shocked. They're just like, this girl, like she's a freshman and she got like the highest score on the tryouts.
Came out of nowhere, Charissa.
No.
That was like, that's what they're thinking, right? Like,
right.
Where'd this girl come from?
Exactly. And I think it just like sort of came out of nowhere. And so I realized like, wow, like I think I might have the potential. So ever since then, I think that was like my starting point. I like attended practice like every single day. And typically, I know students attended practices from like 2 times a week, but I made sure I went 4 times a day, or 4 times a week, sorry, not 4 times a day, 4 times a week, like 2 to 3 hours. And I just like practiced. And I would like try to learn different types of operating systems because in Cyber Patriot, they test you on Windows, Linux, and Cisco, right? And so I was mostly interested in Windows and Cisco at the time. So I made sure that I would completely understand every single concept for Windows and Cisco. And then I just realized, I think like from then I realized like if you just like set a goal and like just stick to it and continuously just try at it, like honestly anything can happen. Because like I don't think if I had that motivation to just work really hard, and if I didn't have such a welcoming and amazing team and an amazing coach, I don't think none of this would have been possible.
So like, what was, I guess, your goal in your first year then? So you said, that goal like really pushed you to like focus and study, but like, what were you really aiming for when you first started? Just to like know as much as possible?
Yes. So like, I think as a freshman, I feel like you just want to like make sure you have so much information, right? Because like you're just like starting out high school. There's so many like sophomores, juniors, seniors that know so much information. So like I just wanted to learn from my like older friends, I guess, from like cybersecurity, from the cybersecurity camp I made. And I think like initially I wasn't really greedy about winning at all. Like I had no intention of thinking that we would place at all. And so I think I was just mostly like hungry for knowledge, and I just wanted to be the best at it. And the only way like to being the best is just to like work hard and dedicate your hours like practicing, right? But I think my freshman year we placed second, and I think that was when I was just like, oh, if only we tried a little bit harder, we could have gotten first, like only a little bit harder. So I think that was when I got a little bit more greedy in terms of like
It like really pushed you even further, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah, it did. But I think that's initially how it all came to be.
I know how that feels because I played, college sports, and there was one year like we didn't make it. Like that was before video replay, and they sometimes after that they changed the rule. But when we left that field, we were crushed, but more determined to like come back, right? And especially once you get that far in a competition, you really understand what it takes to get there.
Exactly.
And I think that really helps you get to the next level, right?
Yes, definitely. I'd have to say that really was like the pushing point into being like, we can be first too. Yes. I think like in a sense, like cybersecurity is very similar to sports. Like maybe not the physical aspect, but like I think everything else, they're all really similar. Like you need a really good coach or a mentor, you need a really good team. I think they're very similar.
So did you just get lucky at the school that you attended and just had a really great coach? Or like, how is it? I assume the other teams have great coaches too, right? Or is it just your team was special?
So I attended Troy High School, and the the mentor I had was Mr. Alan Stubblefield. I'd say he's very well known in the cybersecurity community. I think like he definitely motivates every student to just work hard and try their best. And I'd say he's honestly one of the best mentors I've ever had during my like time in high school. And I think what I realized is that like I think I did get lucky with the coach and mentor and my team, honestly. I think like all my team members were all very hardworking too, which inspired me to be like, oh, I should also push myself even harder to learn more as well too. And
yeah,
so
because you don't want to be the weak link, all these other strong people, like you can't be dragging the team down. I totally understand that. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. So I think my freshman year, I was the only freshman on my team, my cyber Patriot team. And so I was just like, wow, like I felt slightly insecure because since everyone at least had some sort of like experience more than I did, right? Because I came in as my freshman year. So I was like, I think that also pushed me to work even harder, like go to practice every single day, because I realized like, oh, I don't want to be that weak link either. Just because I'm a freshman, like I might not know as much information as my other team members. So I think that also pushed me. But I genuinely think that I think the environment that I was in allowed me to foster more as an individual competing in Cyber Patriot and cybersecurity like events. And there were just so many opportunities that Mr. Stubblefield provided. And so I think that also really helped too.
So like what types of other opportunities did your coach give? Is it like outside of school stuff? Is it other events to attend, camps? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Oh yes, definitely. So Mr. Stubblefield, he like always let us know if there were any cybersecurity related events, and he encouraged us to go. Like he would try to help us find any ways to get there. Like he was very supportive in that aspect. Also during our nationals competitions, so after we qualified, we like we had some sort of like time where we had to sort of prepare for the nationals competitions in Baltimore, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so during that time, Mr. Stubblefield, I think he collaborated with a different college as well too, to sort of have like a red team and a black team. And so we actually had like a lot of like hands-on practice for the actual nationals competition, which was very, 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 very helpful, especially since this was like stimulating the actual nationals competition. So like he offered a lot of like hands-on opportunities, and that was like super helpful in terms of like actually understanding the concepts behind cybersecurity.
So with the red team and black team, were you guys like competing against each other, or?
So in like during my time, there were multiple teams that made it to nationals. So there was just like, we have all service and we have the open division, right? And so I was part of the all service division, and there was like some teams from the all service division and some teams from the open division as well too. And so we would compete against each other, acting as if we were each other's competitors. But the thing is, like in the real nationals competition, the open and the all service division don't really ever compete with each other at my time, or back in the time. And so like we're going against each other in terms of scores wise, but the red team would typically try to hack into our systems that we were trying to defend while finding the vulnerabilities. So it's like a lot of like multitasking that we had to do, which is something that the nationals competition like has, but you wouldn't do that during like the qualifying like competitions. Yes.
Okay, cool. I noticed that you do with Cyber Patriot, you do a lot of coaching or mentoring, right, as well. What is motivating you to give back?
Right. Okay. So I think like overall, just I can like establish one thing is that like coaching and like mentoring definitely gives back to the community, right? But I think it also is really important because I think it allowed me to see and help develop like and improve skills of any individuals there. So I think when I was teaching different concepts of Windows or Cisco, I was just like refreshing my own memory, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot about this, but like there's this concept too, and there's this concept too. So in a sense, it forced me to study even more because I don't want to be that one teacher or mentor where if a student asks me and I don't know the answer, right? Like I feel like that'd be most teachers and professors, like they don't want to not know how to respond to a class, like a member's answer. So I think that like pushed me to study even more, so that way I wouldn't get stuck if someone asked me a question. So not only did it help me to sort of reinforce certain knowledge, but also at the same time, I got so much satisfaction just seeing people improve and sort of like going to the next.
Those little light bulbs going off.
Exactly. It's exactly
exciting.
Yes, I was like so excited when I would like explain something, and then like students would ask questions, and then they'd be like, oh my gosh, I got it, like I figured it out, and I'm like and so I think that aspect as well too just made me super excited because like I'm sort of seeing myself in them like when I was a freshman, and so I'm just like, oh my gosh, like you got this, like. So I think that made me really excited. Also, another thing is that I think there's this sort of like stigma where like girls shouldn't be in STEM, right? And so I think like when I was teaching like Windows or Cisco, there's not as many girls compared to guys, right? I think in a sense, I felt like I'm hoping, I'm not 100% sure, but I hoped a lot of girls were like, wow, like if she can be teaching this, like I can definitely succeed in this like path as well too. Because I feel like another thing is that in my junior year, my team were like all guys. I was the only girl. So in that sort of sense, I felt slightly insecure. Like, not that I'm questioning my own abilities, but I definitely think like imposter syndrome with like the gender you are is definitely there. And
Yeah.
so I felt like, yeah.
You're questioning, like, do I belong here? I'm the only one.
Yeah. And so I think during that time, because like my freshman and sophomore year, they're the same teams. But I had like another girl, so I could relate with her too. And she was also older, so she would also like give me advice about like being the only girl, or like when there's not that many girls, right? And but like junior year, I was like the only girl, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm completely on my own. Like, wow, like it was like that for junior and to senior year. So I was the only girl on my team, and I'm like, wow, like this is slightly intimidating because all the guys, they like all know each other, and they're all confident. And like I think just me being the only girl, I realized like, wow, I also like need to take that leap of confidence. So I think like also during that time too, I think I learned a lot in terms of my own like self-identity as well too.
Switching gears, because you have the K-12 cyber talk background, we
Right.
obviously need to talk about what that is in K-12 cyber talk. You are the host of the show, and it's available online, and it helps people learn about, the cyber community. It basically, I think it has all the cast of characters on there. If you're looking to learn more about what the cyber community is, how did you get involved with that?
Right. And so remember how I was talking about opportunities earlier?
Mm-hmm.
And so Mr. Stubblefield actually told me about this opportunity, and I was just like, wow, that would be amazing. And so it initially, what K-12 Cyber Talk, like how it just began with like dedicated professors and with an NSA grant, right? And so the main person who I like talked to with this was Dr. Manson, and he's also an amazing mentor I've had throughout like my college years. And I think that's initially how it began, and we would have multiple meetings. And this was during the time of COVID because everything was online, everything was on Zoom. So I think that's what made it more accessible, just because it's on Zoom and we didn't have to worry about like actual broadcasting with like real cameras and everything, because it's like COVID and we don't want, like, it's just more about accessibility, right? And so that's initially how it started. And we brainstormed throughout the months, trying to figure out which segments we should have and what type of topics we should cover that can sort of, I guess, touch the students or like remain with the students and any mentors or anyone who uses it, because anyone can honestly learn from it. So I'm just really glad that people are able to use these videos or watch these podcasts to figure and learn more about cybersecurity.
If we were to direct, let's say, anybody to one episode of K-12 Cyber Talk, which one do you think would stand out the most? They all have their own like unique little segments, so it might be hard just to pick one, because for me, I think I could pick like multiple episodes, different segments of each one. Is there anyone for you that stands out?
Wow. So I sort of want to cheat and just say you guys should just watch the entire season 1, season 2. But I feel like that's a terrible answer. Wow, that's very difficult. I think my favorite show. So initially I'm the host, right? And so I typically don't really actually cover each segment, right? So
Right.
I'm just like, I just oversee everything, but I don't really actually do one of the segments. But I think there was this one time where someone couldn't make this filming time, and so I had to fill in, and I filled in with the guest speaker was Dr. Melissa Dark. And I think during that episode, I learned so much from her. I was just like, wow, I don't really remember the specific contents, but I just remembered that show remained such a huge impact on me because I think she was such an inspiring like girl boss. I was just like, wow, like that's exactly what I like. Wow, just
That's a really good capturing word for Dr. Melissa Dark, because I feel the same way about Dr.
right.
Melissa Dark. She is like girl, but she knows her stuff. She'll come out, and when she says something, you're like, wow, yeah, you're right. I feel that. So that's a good one. I would have chosen that one too.
But yes, I think it's so cool. It's so inspiring seeing such like women in STEM. And so I definitely say that episode.
Speaking of women in STEM, you've recently founded Cyber Youth Tech, or SciTech. Can you talk to us all about what that is?
Right. Okay. So Cyber Youth Tech is a nonprofit student-led organization that I co-founded with a couple other girls, which is amazing because go girls in STEM. And it's essentially an organization that raises awareness about cybersecurity. We had branches throughout the United States and the United Kingdom. And so initially how it came to be, there was this camp with the US Embassy in London, and they selected 7 students in America and 7 students in the United Kingdom. Thankfully, I got selected. This was also another opportunity I learned through Mr. Stubblefield, and I like applied through that entire lengthy program. And they flew us out to Washington, D.C., and we went through different courses and we just learned a lot. And then from then I met a couple of girls from the United States and the United Kingdom. And we were just like, oh my gosh, what if we start a small little like club at first? We were thinking very little at first. And we were like, we can just like sort of like teach different students like cybersecurity, just because a lot of people are just so unaware. And I feel like this is just lack of just spreading information, which is why I'm so glad there's podcasts like Cyber Chats, there's like K-12 Cyber Talk, just to spread more information because people need that, right? And so from then, after that entire program was over, we flew back and we started working right away. And initially, I had another girl who was from the same area as me from that program. And we would work with different Boys and Girls Club, YMCAs, libraries, and with our own high schools. And we would just have different demonstrations and sort of go through sort of very basic lessons on how people can protect themselves and secure their devices, because that's really important.
So you're doing all this coaching and you're basically helping create a nonprofit while attending college. And you're pursuing courses about computers and law. So what is it about cybersecurity that's just driving you to be this passionate? Is there one thing in particular you can pinpoint?
I think what I realized is that every single time I would learn something new about cybersecurity, I would just get so excited because it just reinforces the idea about how important and how fun it is to work with different people and how powerful it is to just learn about technology, especially since technology is advancing so quickly, right? And so I'm always just so shocked how there's always so many new things going on, right, with our world, especially just since we're evolving so quickly, right? And so I think taking these different like computer science classes, these legal courses, I sort of know what exactly I want to do in life. And it's not a cybersecurity specialist. It's not like an actual cybersecurity role, but I do want to pursue being a lawyer in the cybersecurity world. And so I sort of want to do both. And so I definitely know that I want to practice law guarding or specializing in cybersecurity laws and public policy. So I think it was only because of cybersecurity I was able to know my passion and what exactly I want to do in life. And also, just another thing is that I think cybersecurity, just the idea of it and just learning, always reminds me how, regardless of what background you have in technology, even if you have none, it's definitely fine, because whatever effort that you put in, you can honestly do anything. Like, I just like think about like my freshman year and I'm just like, wow, I genuinely did not know anything.
Yeah,
like
you came so far. Like, I feel like hearing you tell your story, it really empowered you to find like who you were and, like you said, what your direction and passion was in life. So a lot of this information that we've talked about, like your nonprofit work, obviously Cyber Patriot, K-12 Cyber Talk, all of this is information I was able to find out from you, not just because I know you, but it's on your social media, free, open to find. So it's kind of what we call like, open source information. Have you always been mindful of the information that you put out there? I mean, you mentioned that you had only learned about cybersecurity as a freshman. Like, were those things at the front of your mind when you were beginning to learn about them?
Right. And so I think it's actually really cool because I took a human rights class using OSINT, open source information investigation methods. So we would like have to utilize open source information to solve human rights cases like at Berkeley. And like, it's so cool that you're talking about like open source information, because it just like felt such like, it was just very recent when I took that class. And obviously I think it's very important to be mindful about the information being shared on social media, because like you can honestly find anything, right? And like, it's also important to know that, I guess, just like being aware about the future impact, because whatever anyone posts on social media can have a long lasting impact on the future, right? And so in that sense, I'm definitely mindful about what I want to share on social media. I think things with like K-12 Cyber Talk and Cyber Youth Tech, I want to spread it out to social media as much as I can, just so people can sort of know more about K-12 Cyber Talk and Cyber Youth Tech, and they can actually use these resources. But I definitely think like my own personal information, like I definitely don't want to be posting my social security number or my credit card information, right? And so I think that also, I think another thing I kept in mind is that I enjoy creating content in general, right? And so I don't know if this is a really well-known fact, but I really enjoy creating food content. So I would go to a different restaurant and like sort of like record things and make a food review. And so typically that's like one of my favorite things to do, just like as a side hobby.
Charissa, we are going to need to connect over food. I'm going to need to see these links.
No, yes, definitely. I'll send after this entire podcast. But I think while I was like posting these food reviews, I just like kept into consideration, like it's important to sort of like be mindful about like how a post can affect like the future, because I would be posting on TikTok these like food content, and I met a lot of like cool creators, right? Cool content creators from Berkeley too. And they're like very big content creators, but they don't post food content. We just all bonded because we created content on TikTok and we all go to Berkeley. But I have a friend who in high school, I believe he made a mistake in terms of like what he posted on social media. And a lot of his like fans or his followers like all dug that up, because like social media, there's like digital footprints everywhere, right? And they reported it to the dean of admissions saying, can you redact his application because of his mistake in high school? And he had to go through a long like hearing at Berkeley, and I just felt so terrible. Or I mean, I didn't do anything wrong, or he made a mistake and he acknowledged and apologized for it. But I just felt really bad, because whatever you post in social media will always have a lasting impact. And I think just hearing that story from him just reminded me like, wow, I hope like everyone will be mindful about what they post in the future, because it could affect college apps, job opportunities, personal relationships, and so forth. But thankfully, he's still a junior at Berkeley as well too. So everything got sorted out. But just in general, there's so many like stories about like what you post, and it'll have its history.
Everything has a consequence, positive or negative, right?
That's definitely true.
So Safer Internet Day was February 7th. And I was wondering if you had any tips, given our conversation about, things you shouldn't share and the long lasting nature of social media. What would you share for somebody in grade school or in college? Some tips they should consider before posting, other than it's long lasting. We've established that.
I think making sure you use the privacy settings. I believe many social media platforms have different privacy settings that allow you to control who can see your posts. And so using those settings can sort of allow you to limit the access of what you post and your personal information. Also, just, I guess this is also very like obvious, but just like making sure you avoid sharing any personal information like your home address, your phone number, or like any financial information on social media. That'll just prevent from like identity theft and online scams. Some friends I have that make their accounts public on Instagram have gotten catfished, like from different accounts have catfished them. So just be aware of that. I guess another thing is like language. Just like social media isn't like a private conversation. And so whatever you post is permanent. So I guess being mindful of the type of language you use, making sure it's not offensive or considered harmful. I think just another thing about our like 2023, our generation, cancel culture is definitely real. And so just like being cautious about what you post, I would say, and making sure that you know the people who can view your account, your social media, and so forth.
Those were great tips. Charissa, we had so much fun talking with you today, and we're going to need to connect over food when we end our conversation. I know some other people here are going to want to hear about food as well. So thanks again so much for taking the time to chat. We love to keep in touch, so don't be a stranger next year when you graduate, and let us know what happens.
Yes, thank you so much. This flew by so quickly.